Okay, today in this video what we're going to do is we're going to download this larger base plate piece of the Trojan block that will make a foundation for a castle that we'll ultimately make out of these bricks. So, what you're going to need to do is make sure that you go to your classroom site here. This one's period 4. Your screen may look slightly different than this, but if you click on this, it may or may not go to this thing here. What you're going to want to do is download this file. You're going to click download and it's going to go to your downloads folder. You're not going to be able to see Solidworks files within Classroom. It doesn't know what to do with them. Okay, so if you come now, I clicked on the File Explorer icon down here, come to Downloads folder, there it's going to show up. Now if you double click on that, you should be able to open it up. What you're immediately going to want to do in SolidWorks though is do a save as and save that file to a location that you can tell. So like if I were to go double click on this thing, and this is going to show up incorrectly on my screen because I already have this on my computer. But if I double click here, it opens that up. That's what it's going to look like. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to do a file save as, and in this case, don't want to save it back to my downloads folder. You would come to say your H drive, save it to wherever you're saving your other SolidWorks files so far. All right, that's first steps to be appropriate with this. So I'm going to close that out. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm assuming that you've been able to open this file up. I'm going to do file open. So here's this file right here. This is in part mode. Seeing the features tab right there. What we're going to want to do is we're going to do make assembly from part assembly again here, similar to what we did the other day. So now it's going to be showing the 24 by 36, that's 24 inches by 36 inches by ½ inch thick Trojan block. We're going to drop that into space here. It's going to be big. It's going to be fixed in space. That letter F right there means fixed. I'm going to right click. I'm going to float that. Because right now with that fixed, click and drag, it's not going to let me move. The selected component is fixed. Can't be moved. Okay, it's somewhere in space. I want to float it. Now once I float it, it's free to move. I'm left clicking and dragging that around. I want to mate this. So there's my front plane, there's my top plane, there's my right plane kind of hidden in there. I'm going to orient this thing. So front plane, I'm going to do a mate. Now that's highlighted there. I'm just going to zoom in. That face right there is now mated to front plane. That's good. Top plane, I'm going to want to mate the bottom of this part to the top plane. And then I'm going to be mating, what was the other one? Right plane. So I just clicked on right plane, showed up highlighted, and click that one. Nice. Now once I finish up with that, I am locked in space relative to the origin. If I do a Control 7 on my keyboard, shows up nice isometric right there. If I come and click here, this down arrow or triangle next to the mates in the assembly here, you can see I've got my 3 coincident mates. Nice. Now I'm going to show you here. We had messed around with this maybe a little bit last week, but let's do this a little bit more formally now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to open up. If we had a 2x2 brick, I'm in the wrong location here. I'm going to go to my SolidWorks curriculum, which is where I've been saving all these. So I've got a couple different Trojan blocks that I had modeled up. 2x2 by ½ inch, 2x2 by 3/4. I'm going to open this one up. And you guys should have something that looks similar to this that we had modeled, our basic block. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go window, and if you can't see this right here, the way that you can get to this, if your screen looked something like that, where you don't have this here, come up here, click that pin in place. I just recommend always having that there. Then you can come to this window. All right. You're going to see all these things are up. Now if I come to this assembly 2, that was where I dropped that in. Probably going to want to save this as, click and save that. I'm going to call this my Trojan block castle. Saving it as an assembly file type. Okay, so now I'm going to insert components. Alright, I've got my 2x2 by 3/4 inch thick block. I'm just going to drop it somewhere in space here. Okay, that's cool. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to mate this block. And notice that if I orbit, notice that my orbit is actually, I'm using my center. Ooh, and I did a really funky orbit to give a little bit more control. I'm clicking and holding my center mouse button, but I'm actually having it focus on that one single part right here. Notice that it will actually orbit about that part. If you click anywhere else though, it's going to orbit around where your mouse is, which may or may not be what you really want. So if you actually click on a surface, it helps to keep things centered up. Okay. Now, oops, that's zooming in. I'm control panning around. So I'm going to orbit around this thing. I'm going to create a mate now. But we had been using a lot of coincident mates. Now we're going to use a slightly different one here. This concentric mate. I'm going to click on concentric right there. Now what this is going to do is it's going to align two circular features so that their centers are exactly the same and about each other. Okay, so there's that one there. Now you're going to need to be careful where you click. I'm going to want my row of parts to be lined up along this edge here. So the correct one that I should click right now is going to be that one. Notice how that aligns up. That looks good. Now as I do this, it's free to rotate about that one. Now I'm going to rotate around this. I'm going to do another concentric mate about that. I'm going diagonally, so that was the one that I did before, concentric. I'm going to click here to make that one concentric. Now, there are opportunities to mess this up aplenty now. Or maybe click on the wrong thing that you don't want. I guess I can show how to correct that later. But for now, I'll assume you clicked on the right things. Now I'm going to go the bottom face of that. Orbit around. And I'm going to click on that top face. And now that is a coincident mate right there. Now if you do that, I've got a block nicely here. Alright. So you could decide to just click and drop whole bunches of blocks sideways here and then do those mates repeatedly over and over and over again. Now that would be rather time consuming. This is where we're going to have to get crafty and make use of some other tools that are here to us to use. That being the component patterning feature. So similar to maybe how you actually modeled in the block here a feature pattern, you can actually pattern components now as well. So guess what we're going to do is we're going to click on that feature, or excuse me, this component rather, do a linear component pattern. Notice how it actually highlighted the components to pattern already. If I really didn't want that, I could click there and go clear selections. Now it doesn't know what to do. Now what seems to be throwing a lot of people off is the fact that, well, what's this direction 1, direction 2? Well, my intention here is that I'm going to do a row of blocks extending out in this direction. And I don't care particularly how many right now. I just want to get them going this way. So the critical component on this, or the critical element I should say on this, is the direction that that pattern is going. Now I'm going to select this edge. Could have potentially selected, say, that edge, but I wanted something to go in what would be the X direction here. That, and notice how I've got this little arrow right here. I could click on it and reverse it that way. This button here does the same thing. That little arrow right there, that is pointing in the direction in which the pattern is going to go. Alright, so now components to pattern, I'm going to click and highlight in there, and I'm going to click on that. And it gives us this yellow preview. Well, that's kind of overlapping each other. Not really what I want, but guess what? If I alter this value to be, say, 2 inches, which is the complete length of a block, I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total instances of that block extending that way. Now I could crank this up, or type in, say, I don't know, it's 36 inches along in this direction, and that was 2, so you could actually have enough for, say, 18. I think it would be 18 blocks. Now in this case you could actually protrude out beyond the end. It doesn't care, it'll keep going off into space, but we're going to be kind of capped at 18 here. So if we wanted it to go the full length, that right there, click check. Nice, and now we have got a local pattern of all of these blocks. Whoa. So that saved us a heck of a lot of time of clicking and dropping those things in. Now say if we wanted to go vertically, we could potentially come back in. If we wanted to do it also going vertically at the same time, I could come back in. I right clicked on that local pattern. I'm going to click here. Now under direction 2, what we could have done was highlighted, potentially say that edge. Oop, don't want to go in that way. Come up there. Now this one we could be doing, say instead of that distance, this is where the 0.75 would come in. We go tab to that. And instance of, I don't know, let's see here. Number of instances would maybe be 2. Let's see if that worked. Uh-oh, well, that didn't quite work the way that I wanted it to. Edit feature. Oh, that's what it did. Whoop, hold on. Let's see what we got here. So 2 instances, direction 2. It didn't actually take. Whoops, that's what happened. Clear selection on that. It overwrote. I clicked on the wrong edge. I'm going to flip that around. Direction 2 now is going to be that way. And I'm going to flip that up that way. Ah! So all in one feature pattern now I have got potentially a wall of bricks going up that way. Dang! Look at that. Okay. Now I have got a wall of bricks that quickly to allow me to actually do cool stuff and build up fast. Alright, so that's just the introduction of how to do that one there. Okay, very nice. So that's how we can quickly populate bricks.